kind of money this guy makes. He's saying that the bullets and that the shooters, all of them, have a transgender overlap. Let's now go to Bianca Von Krieg. Bianca, welcome to the Cary Harrison Files.
Hi, it's good to be back. Yeah, I try not to pay attention to guys like Alex Jones.
And he's paying attention to you.
Well, I really don't care, and that's kind of the message I have for people today is for trans people not to take this bait up, because this is exactly what the establishment wants. They want to wedge issue like the transgender agenda or the cabal or whatever they're calling it, or abortion or something like that, something that doesn't cost any money, to get weak-minded people really angry and really distracted. And that's where these kind of things stem from. It's funny though. I was talking to a friend about Charlie. I really didn't know the guy well. He's kind of one of those guys who comes on, I kind of tune him out. But somebody was saying, you guys are actually two sides of the same coin, because I used to have a radio show, and I was trying to do the same thing as him, but from the other way around, trying to reach, conservatives. And it was hosted by a conservative guy too, and I was saying the same thing. Please call in, please challenge me. So, I listened to a little bit of the guy, talked to some people, and it seems like he was just a genuine person. But unlike people like, Alex Jones and Glenn Beck, who are basically just media savvy fearmongers, who are channeling to weak-minded people in order to hack their Amway products, whatever the hell they got going on. This guy legitimately wanted to connect with people and legitimately had a message. Now, was it for me? No, it seemed a little bit something.
So I'm just because a legitimate message, a lot of people, Mussolini had a legitimate message. Many leaders in Africa have a legitimate message. Many people sitting in Congress right now have a legitimate message. A legitimate message does not make it a healthy, nutritious message.
I think legitimate means healthy to them.
Boomerang back. Can you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, when I use the term legitimate, I mean they honestly believe it's morally more superior. The people in Africa don't. The people like Nancy Pelosi or Biden or some of the people on Fox are basically saying what they're saying to get to their audience, to hold their audience, to manipulate their audience. I used to say when I was running for Congress, representative isn't just a one-way street. It's also two-way. It's also about, talking to your constituents about what's happening in the rest of the world and giving them perspective, right? Like, yeah, okay, we have needs, but these people have needs too, and they're actually greater in this specific time and place. So we have to pay attention to that. So that's what I mean by that. So it's really important not to take their bait and engage on this. I know it's easy. I know they're toxic, but I also have a message for the right people. The authoritarian said you talk about getting rid of guns or more jail or death penalty. Please get out of the gene pool, okay? Because none of that stuff is going to work. The people who do these things know full well that their life is forfeit, and they don't care. Death sentences, death penalties, life in jail means nothing to them. You're not going to see these guys crying on the way to prison or anything like that. They're fully prepared for what they're doing. And it's very sad. It's very sad that they're being used in this way, because they are being used by the media. And that's the other thing I wanted to say to the people on the left, is that, yeah, you are basically becoming a useful idiot in a lot of ways when you engage in these kinds of things to them. You're doing their dirty work for them. So, don't do that.
Well, I don't know if we really have a left in this country. We have a center.
Yeah, that's a great point, is that, the idea that we have a binary political...
Healthcare, we don't even have barely an appetite for it. Of course, if people could vote, like all the taxpayers, if you paid the same amount of taxes, but you got all this stuff for it, people would say, good deal. But they're not given the option. I'm going to reintroduce you here because we had a pause when the phone died earlier.
Okay.
We're talking to transgender Bianca Von Krieg, Stanford, MIT trained engineer, actress, LGBT activist. She's run for Congress against Nancy Pelosi. Tangled with the establishment, builds a reputation for calling out corruption with both wit and fire. Says she's now a senior advisor to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., head of Health and Human Services, was even on the phone with him just yesterday. Let's talk about that. Your phone call with Bobby Kennedy yesterday. Did you guys talk about this Charlie Kirk shooting and what's his plan?
Well, we didn't really go into that, but I do have some good news for some of the trans people in the audience, is that they're not going to be doing anything on transgender care for adults. So that's some good news for this whole circumstance. And obviously, everybody's really concerned about it. What I'm concerned about is people pursuing the wrong solution, trying to say things like there's no place for violence in society. That Jedi mind trick just ain't flying. Okay, and that's just a way to end the conversation. And what we need to have is the beginning of what is the solution to this. And in order to find the solution, we have to address the problem, and that we have a disaffected youth. We have a youth that sees no future for itself. And I can't lie to them. They're not wrong. There's no middle class. We are working 3 times as hard to have half as much as our parents. It's not working, and they're realizing that, and they're shutting down, and they're acting out with their misdirected anger in these ways. But there's good news to this. The good news is we can fix this. We can fix the problem. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be easy, but we can fix it.
Von Krieg having the ear of Robert F. Kennedy to be the ameliorative touch in that. You could actually advise him to take some of the resources and take these disaffected people who are starving, who are desperate, people who are sick and dying, and offer them some relief so they're not agitated, psychotic, and desperate.
Yeah, the administration is making some inways in that respect. It starts with removing artificial dyes from food, not establishment. Shattering the chronic over acute care model, not establishment. Ending branded drug advertising, not establishment. Joining the Reform Party.
Yeah, but what I was talking about.
I know you're talking. I know it's.
Like
yeah, you're right. It's. I get it. It's like Elon Musk bringing a solo cup of water to the LA fires.
You're not impressed by that. What I'm talking about, we have you are the access point, especially as a transgender person, where we've all been told you don't even exist. The T is gone off the LGBT. You have a unique access point to Health and Human Services, to Bobby Kennedy. He is in a unique position to just do something for these disaffected people so they're not desperate and nuts and angry and starving and desperate.
Yeah.
Pushed up against a wall where they're going to act out. What can we advise him?
Well, what we can advise him is to advise the other cabinet members and the president, because that's the only way a real solution to this problem is going to happen. This is a major societal problem. It's not going to be, you can't squeeze it all into HHS and say you can do some things through it, right? And we are working towards that end. But we have to solve major inequity, equality problems before we can get to those kinds of solutions. And that's some of the things I was talking about. Yeah, it is lipstick, okay? It's small steps. It's like Elon Musk bringing a solo cup of water to the LA fires and saying, hey, I brought water, but it's a good step. They're starting to learn. And this is what I'm trying to say.
I don't think people in LA think that was great.
Well, but hopefully it's polarized enough for them to pay attention and learn.
Puerto Ricans. I don't think that went over well.
But what I'm trying to say is that this administration is trying more than most, and we've seen in a lot.
The American public to take health care away from 18 million people. How does anyone say that helps Mildred?
Because it helps Mildred get better care, because we can devote more dollars to that by taking it away from illegal immigrants who are usurping the system fraudulently.
Where is she now going to get health care? She's on Medicaid. Where is she now going to get it?
She's going to get it at any clinic that she's been going to so far. Healthcare services aren't being cut. We're very serious about that. And we've sent out, every time we see something in the media about so-and-so losing their care, or some other kind of fear-mongering story, we connect and we say, can you show us any proof of this? And they never do. There's never any hard proof. I can tell you after that incident with that senator from Washington, not in this last hearing, but in the hearing before, we all sprang into action to see, what we could do to help that person and how big of a real problem was. Turns out it was not too much there. So, we really need to stop fear-mongering, because this is part of the problem. When you engage in this, we're also teaching you to.
For example, in the state of Florida, 28 to 30 million people, you only get STI testing once a year. That means 28 million people are now giving each other syphilis and gonorrhea, and it's no longer covered by Medicare, and this is through your department. How does that benefit the people of the United States to have communicable diseases that they're transmitting to each other? What is the upside?
Well, I can't speak to the health practices of the state of Florida, but it seems like getting a STI test.
You can speak to it.
Well, no, sometimes we're limited by local factors. See, the way Medicare and Medicaid is provided is centrally distributed, but it's also implemented through the states. So there can be a wide swath of array of differences between the states. California obviously has better health care in that respect than Florida. And I do think that as regular STD screens are a good public health measure, especially in sexually active populations. And I would encourage Florida to pursue that as well, if they haven't already been doing so, according to you.
The governor says he's doing what he was told. So he's blaming it on you guys. Can you help us understand that you want people and that you're willing to fund STI testing?
Prima facie, it sounds like a good plan. I'll have to look into the specifics of if that is in fact the case, what's the greater explanation. But offhand, I really, I don't know about that specific program. It does seem like a good program on the surface, though. But, getting back to the larger issue of what's affecting our youth, you have to understand that the current administration is not establishment, okay? They may not be particularly relatable to a generation, okay? The president comes from another generation. He believes, he likes guys, who take pride in their appearance. He likes women who don't regard their gender as a nuisance. And maybe he has a slightly unhealthy fixation on McDonald's food. And that orange stuff on his face, hand to God, I can't tell you what the hell is going on over there. But he is trying, and he is, they are baby steps for him, but you have to remember you're bridging a lot of cultural boundaries, and that's what we have to get past right now. And we're coming along there. I mean, the things he's doing, like mass.
When we have people running the show who don't apparently want to help us get past that. So somebody has to act and make things better, which boils back to your conversation with Bobby Kennedy yesterday. What did you guys talk about that we need to know about?
Well, nothing that you need to know about. Much of the call was pretty confidential, unfortunately. But I'm trying to make people aware of the much bigger picture here, is that the administration is not your enemy in this case. What they're doing are not the doings of an establishment. Now, what are the doings of an establishment? And I'm going to go back in history a little bit here. Let's talk about the Nazis.
I'm so sorry. I really cannot track this.
Well, it's
why not just do a presidential directive saying that you're going to undo what the people, because remember, it's the government operates at the consent of the governed. If the governed feel that they've been hoodwinked or somehow not getting what they are paying for in their taxes, that all of that will be reversed and they'll be handed back their rights and privileges. Wouldn't that be a great idea?
Well, of course, and in many ways they're doing that now. We're seeing this with massive equality tariffs, mass deportations, no taxes on tips, transparency overload.
Tax. Like if somebody puts a 50% tariff on something coming from another country, I have to pay it.
No, that's a misconception, and you're talking to an economist here. Okay, no, it is because there
Goes up. The price goes up because it
the
costs
price
more.
it does cost
Yeah,
more, but that could come out of their margin because they don't want to lose market share.
but I haven't heard a single company. I
Actually, a
visited
lot
two
of them are doing that. A lot of them,
everything, everything obsessively. Not one CEO is talking about reducing their margins because they think it's a great idea to help people. They're beholden to their investors, and they should be.
yeah, and while they're beholden to their investors, they don't want to lose market share, which will have much more longer-term consequences. It costs way more to get a new customer than to keep an existing one. So it's much more to their advantage to keep their existing ones and eat the margin, especially if there's just a short-term adjustment, and push that on to the other people in their vertical and horizontal chains as well. So that's not necessarily true. As a matter of fact, it's generally not.
I love this conversation. I am so sorry. We're literally like 30 seconds. Not your fault, not my fault.
I know we have some technical, yeah.
Continue this. You're smart. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you so much. Bianca Von Krieg, Stanford, MIT trained engineer, actress, LGBT activist, run for Congress against Nancy Pelosi. Says she's now a senior advisor to Robert F. Kennedy as a trans person. Was even on the phone with him just yesterday. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at CaryHarrison.com. You'll get a full transcript of this. I want to thank Will Coltrane. Weird that we were in like 1980s technology today using phones, but thank God we had them. Next week, we will be back to normal, modern processes. But I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I hope you have a great week.